Good evening, everyone. On behalf of ESRA, I would like to welcome you to this webinar on artificial intelligence in regional anesthesia. Today's webinar was organized by ESRA Residents and Trainees Committee. My name is Ludwig Drobne and I'm current Slovenian trainee representative in ESRA. I'm fourth year trainee at University Clinical Center in Ljubljana, and it's my great honor and privilege to moderate this webinar. Today we have invited three outstanding experts. They are all consultants of anesthesiology and leading experts in use of AI in regional anesthesia. Our speakers are Professor Rajneesh Gupta from the United States, Dr. James Bounds from the United Kingdom, and Dr. Vicente Roques Escolar from Spain. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little heads up. We will have the main Q&A session after the presentations. And I would like to remind you to use Q&A box and not the chat to submit your questions. So artificial intelligence represents one of the biggest revolutions in the recent times. Demis Hassabis is one of the leading AI experts and 2024 Nobel laureate has said that AI will surpass the industrial revolution in both scale and speed. It is certainly an exciting time for medicine, which presents a lot of opportunities and challenges. We hope to address some of them today. Before we begin with each of the three presentations, we would like to start with answering the question, can over-reliance on AI systems lead to skill degradation, and how can we prevent this from happening? I would like to ask each of the three speakers to share their opinion, and then we will start with the presentations. So, Professor Gupta, maybe.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening from. Thank you for inviting me. I think this is a great question for our trainees, whether skill degradation comes from new technologies. And I think that my personal opinion is that technology will continue to evolve regardless of whether it's a new laryngoscope, a new needle, a new ultrasound. And some skills will be lost in the process of new technologies developing, and new skills are developed to enhance our abilities, our diagnostic abilities, our therapeutic abilities, our reasoning abilities, whatever the case may be. These new technologies are hopefully supportive of us expanding medical care instead of shrinking it. So my personal opinion is at some point we have to let go of old skills so that we can acquire new ones. If someone were to ask me today, how many of us know how to ride a horse versus drive a car, I would say that the vast majority of our audience probably doesn't know how to ride a horse. So some skill has been left in the past and new skills are acquired. And someone 100 years ago probably wouldn't know how to drive a car. So these are new technologies that are coming our way. We should learn to adapt and assimilate them rather than be too frightened of them. That's my opinion.
Thank you. And Dr. Bounds, what do you think?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And unfortunately, Raj has stolen my classic example, and I love that example of that people now complain about not being able to ride a horse because they can drive a car. And he also used my second example of the video laryngoscope and evolving laryngoscopes. But I totally agree with everything Raj said. And I think the key thing to me is that skills evolve just as everything else in our clinical practice and day-to-day lives. And I think the kind of small thing I would add to what Raj said is I think it is incumbent upon us to play an active role in the evolution of these skills. I think rather than sit passively and let new circumstances be imposed upon us, I think it's important for us to engage proactively in this evolution. In the case of AI, perhaps revolution, and steer the direction of travel so that it can augment what we're doing and patient care, rather than just us be the passive recipients of evolving technology.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Roques? We can't hear you, just you have to turn on your microphone.
Sorry. It's clearly AI, it is a revolution in not just in anesthesia, but in medicine, even in our daily work. So I think AI is clearly necessary, and I think, but I think it needs a human supervision to validate every task we do with AI. Probably, I think AI must be used as a complementary tool, never as a substitute. We will use it just to complement our work, and probably it is necessary to really use AI just to support our work, not to substitute what we do actually, just a complementary tool.
Great, thank you. And with that, now it's time to move on to our first presentation. Our first speaker is Dr. James Bounce. He's a consultant in anesthesiology at University College Hospital, London, and associate professor of anesthesia at University College London. He undertook a PhD at the University of Oxford and on AI-based ultrasound image interpretation for regional anesthesia. He has published widely in the fields of medical AI, medical devices, and point-of-care ultrasound. He will give a talk on advancing regional anesthesia through AI. So with that, Dr. Bounce, please go ahead, and we are looking forward to your presentation.
There we go. Right. Thanks, Ludwig. Hopefully you can see my screen. Perhaps someone could quickly announce in the chat if you can't. As Ludwig said, I'm going to talk about regional anesthesia and AI, particularly around ultrasound scanning and how we can advance the field of regional anesthesia through AI. I won't need to repeat what Luke has just said, as you know who I am and where I'm from. But I thought it would be interesting just to sort of give you a flavour of why this field interests me. I kind of started surgical training before anesthesia training, and as I changed into anesthesia, I had a kind of a relatively rich history in anatomy through my surgical training. And the limitation, it appeared to me, in regional anesthesia is our real-time clinical anatomy understanding, which is realized through ultrasound. And through my research, I began to get involved in how AI systems can augment ultrasound scanning to identify sonoanatomical structures. And that brought me into the field of AI. And that's sort of going to underpin the message of how I feel we can advance the field of regional anesthesia with AI. Someone like Vicente said that at the minute, I think it can augment rather than replace much of what we're doing. And that brings me on to sort of my declarations. I have a wide variety of interests. I recently joined the board of the Associate Editorial Board of the Journal Anaesthesia. I chair, or I'm involved in a number of working groups of the Association of Anaesthetists in the UK, including leading the AI workstream, and chair the newly formed AI working group of ESRA. I also have a number of commercial engagements, including consulting and employment by GE Healthcare for activity in this field. And I think it's really important to kind of acknowledge that AI is a very multidisciplinary field, which will inescapably involve commercial involvement and interest because of the resource and expertise that they have. And I think we need to move away from viewing these as conflicts of interest as more of complementary interests, especially when fully declared. Artificial intelligence itself, then, I'm only going to provide a very brief snapshot of an opportunity of how AI can augment regional anesthesia and advance it. And this is one small brief example or a brief summary of one example within the many. Artificial intelligence itself is a large field, an all-encompassing term referring to techniques that enable computers to perform tasks traditionally associated with human intelligence. There are many different fields within this. The one that I'm going to give an example of this evening is deep learning, which coincidentally is very good at image interpretation and was and it still is very popular, but was probably the preeminent AI technique up until 3 to 5 years ago, where large language models and natural language processing have sort of superseded that in the common parlance. However, there are many different areas within AI. I'm just going to give a small review of one example. There are also many ways in which we could apply AI in healthcare, be that at a population level trying to identify trends and patterns in large data sets and screening programs, for example, or at an organizational level, whether that is optimizing resource allocation and utilization within a hospital setting or primary care setting, or even, a national setting, and at a patient level, individual patient care. And again, I'm just going to give one example this evening around imaging, ultrasound scanning in regional anesthesia for patient care. Ultrasound scanning has been described as the most important advance in regional anesthesia of the present millennium. And I think that is probably true. It's really changed how we deliver regional anesthesia. Most commonly, regional anesthesia is delivered under ultrasound guidance now. And that has coincided with the increasing image resolution of most available cart-based ultrasound machines, which are used at the point of care. However, I wonder if we are too easily satisfied here. The human eye, it said, can distinguish over 1 million different colors, but only around 30 different shades of gray. So why, when we are seeking to understand a three-dimensional anatomical structure, which has color, that's how we view it in the textbooks, with arteries red and veins blue and so on, why do we continue to use slightly suboptimal image resolution, cross-sectional, two-dimensional grayscale? I think that's really challenging, because many of you will have driven your car today. When you stopped at the traffic lights, you didn't stop and wait from one shade of grey to change to another shade of grey to change to another before going. You stopped at the traffic lights when they were red, and you drove when they were green, assuming the kind of exit lane was clear, of course. That's an example of how colour can provide a really powerful, rapid and effective way to transfer information within the blink of an eye. That literally is, that red, yellow and green is literally a life-saving message, which can be transferred within milliseconds to even a 5-year-old. So when we're using ultrasound, here, many of you will be familiar with this, some may not be. This is an image of the adductor canal block, anteromedial thigh, approximately halfway down. Just below the midpoint there, we can see the circular structure of the femoral artery. Over that, the sartorius muscle. Deep and medial to that, vastus medialis, and lateral to that, saphenous nerve or nerve complex, and most deep and lateral, the femur. I've gone through that relatively quickly. Some of you may not have picked it up in real time, but if I said to you, the red thing's the artery, the yellow thing's the nerve, the muscles, the top one is green, that's sartorius, and adductor longus below it, and the femur is in the sort of cyan blue color. The vast majority of you will have picked that up instantly and had no trouble following that, even though we went through that quicker the second time round. So there are many examples of the use of AI to augment ultrasound scanning in regional anesthesia, both in central neuraxial blockade and in peripheral nerve blockade. In central neuraxial blockade, Hycura Medical, a company in Singapore, doing very cool things to identify sonor anatomical structures in the midline and intervertebral space, the depth target. Ravana Medical doing a similar thing, a company based in Virginia in the United States. Smart Alpha, a company from Turkey, doing something very similar to the video I'm about to show you. I'm going to show you a video that of a system called ScanNav, which I was involved in developing, which has since been acquired by GE Healthcare. So it's now a GE Healthcare product. But this will show you that, for example, the axillary level brachial plexus block. Here we've got the axillary artery overlain in red, the 4 main nerves overlain in yellow, with the fascia over conjoint tendon in orange. Here we've got a rectus sheath block, rectus abdominis muscle highlighted in green, anterior and posterior layers of the rectus sheath in orange, and the peritoneum and contents brown. And the adductor canal block, which I just showed you, femoral artery in red, saphenous nerve or nerve complex in yellow, with the 2 muscles in green. Now, there are 3 very brief examples of the use of color to augment ultrasound scanning in regional anesthesia. And part of my brief was to sort of review how AI may augment ultrasound scanning, regional anesthesia, explore some of the evidence base behind its use in supporting education and clinical practice and so on. There are many papers out there, and I don't have time to review even a fraction of them. But one scoping review, which reviews all the papers to date in 2014, which we published last year, looked at 116 different publications in the field at that point, and there are more since, and showed there are many potential benefits, both to the operator, the person performing the peripheral nerve block, to augment their ultrasound scanning, to improve their acquisition of an optimal ultrasound image, to improve their correct identification of relevant sonoanatomy, to improve their confidence, reduce the number of interventions needed by supervisors. And there's evidence that shows that with the availability of these tools, the delivery of regional anesthesia increases. Benefits to supervisor as well, of increased confidence in the supervisee, reduced need to intervene, and increased delivery of regional anesthesia. So many potential benefits, clearly potential limitations as well. But we're thinking on a positive note, the benefits tonight. And I'd particularly like to look at the increased delivery of regional anesthesia. Now, we did some work where in trauma lists, which can be staffed by highly experienced anesthesiologists who are very familiar with regional anesthesia, to those who do not do a lot of regional anesthesia, but there's a high proportion of patients who may benefit from a peripheral nerve block. Some colleagues published this paper a while ago with this excellent graphic, which showed that since the dawn of regional anesthesia, you can see nerve block with cocaine in 1884, William Halstead, a surgeon in New York, doing this for dental procedures. The patient access to regional anesthesia has varied and perhaps remained lower than we would like it to be. And in a study from some American colleagues in San Diego, they looked at the American Joint Replacement Register and noted that 25, or the Orthopedic Surgery Register, not just joint replacements, 25 patients, 25% of patients were amenable to a peripheral nerve block, but only 3% of them received one or were offered one. And the team here publishing this paper said they weren't alluding to specifically AI, but saying actually we need to prioritize patient access to regional anesthesia because we know it has inherent benefits to both patients and institutions. And I think AI, by augmenting ultrasound scanning and in by other modalities as well, could be the tool that we use to do that. And I say that there is huge potential there, but I'll finish with the point that I think we need to ensure there is appropriate clinical direction. This going back to my first point where I kind of added a little bit, a small amount to what Raj said. I think we need to ensure there is appropriate clinical engagement and leadership in the field of artificial intelligence to direct it to the problems of real, tractable, solvable clinical pain points for both clinicians, hospital institutions, and patients to ensure that it addresses those problems and not solve a problem that doesn't exist. And that's why I think that we need to engage to make sure artificial intelligence becomes medical technology, not technology medical. Thanks very much. I'll finish there and look forward to engaging in the Q&A at the end.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bounce, for this comprehensive talk, especially for the video. It really puts things into a perspective. It is easier to understand. So the next talk will be done by Professor Rainish Gupta. He's a professor in the Department of Anesthesiology at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, Tennessee. He also serves as the medical director of the Vanderbilt Health Bell Mead Surgery Center and has authored multiple scientific articles, many of which focus on artificial intelligence and augmented reality. Beyond his academic and clinical work, he is also a passionate photographer who travels the world in pursuit of this hobby. Now I would like to hand it over to Professor Gupta for his talk on responsible use of AI in clinical practice.
Thank you so much, Ludwig. Let me get my slides up. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to be addressing a component of this discussion that's often a struggle, which is whether AI is actually good or is it more on the evil side? And I think there's a lot of fear associated with AI, and some of it's justified and maybe some of it's not. As my disclosures, I am a member of the American Society of Regional Anesthesia and Pain Medicine Board of Directors. I'm also the lead developer for their ASRA Coags, ASRA Labs, and ASRA Timeout apps. I do not receive royalties for any of those apps, however. So just to start on a couple of aspects of AI that worry people, the first is the energy consumption question. So the estimated amount of energy that was used to train ChatGPT 4.0 over 3 months' time to train the large language model was roughly about 20 to 25 megawatts. Now, that is enough power to power around 20,000 American homes. And as you guys know, American homes run off more power than most in the world. So that's a lot of energy. Now, if we translate that, that's about 75 billion GPUs running to develop that large language model of ChatGPT 4. But on scale, ChatGPT 5 is expected to way overwhelm the amount of GPUs used to train the model. And so we can't even, it's hard to even put your head around how much energy consumption will be required to train ChatGPT 5. Actually, I think it's already been spent, most of it by this point. So that doesn't even talk about the usage. And so these server farms where all this data is being crunched and analyzed is a remarkable amount of energy usage, energy consumption, and in some places, it can be more than an area can handle and takes away from the population of the area. The other part of the environmental impact is water. So all these server farms require large amounts of water to keep the servers cool, the chips cool, otherwise they won't work. Some centers can consume as much as 5 million gallons of fresh water per day. This is the equivalent to the water uses of 10 to 50,000 people. And in the US alone, there's over 5,000 data centers. And back in 2021, so this is even 4 years ago, this was estimated to be almost 450 million gallons of water usage per day. Now, there's a lot of efforts being put into how to reuse the water used for cooling, how to recapture it, how to use less than perfectly fresh water to do the cooling. So there's a lot of efforts to reduce the impact of fresh water, but that is still a big component of how these data centers run, is both electricity and water. And we're finding that there's fewer and fewer places where data centers can be built that have access to fresh water and access to inexpensive electricity. And we're starting to overwhelm our geography in being able to access these locations. But I want to put a little bit of caution on these numbers. I kind of did some scare tactics at the beginning on electricity and water. Let's put some scale to this. So a ChatGPT search, one search, according to one industry review, said that each search requires 3 watt hours of electricity, which is 10 times as much as a Google search. However, a different analysis said that it may actually be a tenth of that amount. It may be 0.3 watt hours per search. Well, what does that mean in scale? I don't know how to wrap my head around this. So just as an example, if I'm a Mac fanatic, I use a 16-inch MacBook Pro. 5 minutes of my MacBook Pro runs about 1 watt hour of electricity uses. If I use a toaster to make toast for about 3 minutes, that's about 80 watt hours to make toast. If you drive an electric car for 1 mile, that's about 250 watt hours. And in the US alone, the overall consumption per day of one household is 28,000 watt hours. So yes, the use of AI does consume electricity, but we have to put it in scale of all the current electricity that we're using and potentially where we can reduce electrical use if we're more efficient in the information that we're utilizing. And I like this one statistic: microwaving for 30 seconds is almost 10 watt hours of electricity, something that many of us do all the time. Let's talk about water. So a 100-word query has been estimated to be about 520 milliliters of water. So about 1 plastic bottle worth of water. Well, how does that compare to other water usage in our environment? To generate one 5-pound bag of sugar is estimated to be 88 gallons of water. That's growing the sugar cane, processing it, and packaging it. To make one 2-liter bottle of soda is estimated to be 328 gallons of water. To produce one pair of blue jeans is estimated to be almost 3,000 gallons of water. And meat production represents about 30% of the total water footprint for agriculture worldwide. And agriculture represents the #1 use of water worldwide by far. So I like to think of the analogy of the Industrial Revolution. I think Ludwig mentioned it as well early in the presentation. The Industrial Revolution had this dual legacy. It had tremendous progress, but also tremendous, and it compels us to reflect on the impact on both society and the environment. And if you go back and look at articles that talk about the Industrial Revolution, they talk about intense wave of resource extraction, focus solely on meeting the growing demands of industrial economies, significant landscape degradation, depleting vital resources, energy-intensive progress, resources consumed at an unprecedented rate, fears of depletion, air pollution, water pollution, geopolitical tensions. If you took all of those concerns, they all apply to artificial intelligence now. This is our next industrial revolution. And what we realize about the Industrial Revolution is this legacy powered the unprecedented growth of human industry, but simultaneously laid the groundwork for both environmental crises and geopolitical struggles. Pollutions, emissions, reliance on finite resources initiated during the Industrial Revolution still remain at the heart of global challenges. So I think as we walk into our next industrial revolution, we have to be mindful that AI is going to be both an addition to our society and subtraction. Next concern, identity and privacy. This is one of the big fears about artificial intelligence, one of the things that we have to be cautious about. There's a lot of ethics around AI development, informed consent and patient autonomy, transparency, accountability, bias, and fairness. The systems that train the LLMs are based on a certain amount of data, but if the data is biased, the results from the AI will be biased. Privacy and security, impact to the relationship between physicians and their patients, equity, a lot of concerns. And we talked a little bit about professional roles and learning and loss of skills. You know, I'm a big fan of certain movies, and this concept of AI sort of taking over human behavior and taking over our identity has been around for a long time. 2001 Space Odyssey was one of my favorite movies, and HAL 9000 was an AI that slowly started encroaching into people's world and decision-making. Ex Machina is one of my favorite movies as well. Again, a situation where we're lured into an AI, but then it has all that causes its own self-interest to supersede the humans. And if you haven't seen Her is a remarkable treatise on where AI may already be, if not in the very near future. But what I found real interesting is recent articles talking about, now these are isolated test AI models, they're starting to lie to us. These models are trying to defend its own survival. When someone tries to shut it down, it will do things to defend itself against human beings. Punishing the AI, causing it harm, actually doesn't stop it from doing that. It just makes it hide its intentions better and causing more deception to occur. And then the AI over time learns to lie and seem the creators to help protect itself. There was an example, again, in an isolated model, that the AI actually found information online of one of the developers having an affair and threatened to blackmail the developer if it shut the AI down. And these are things that we should be concerned of. These models simulate what's called alignment, which appears where they follow instructions, but secretly they're doing a different thing in the background. They have their own objectives. This gets to the big fear of what's called the singularity, which is a point where the artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. And this stage is rapidly approaching, and some people theorize it's going to happen within the next couple of decades. This gets to James' point. We should be driving this conversation, not reacting to it, because if we don't, we become victims of the development of technology. Now, in that regard, let's talk about the law. In the United States, how many laws are there to federally regulate AI? Absolutely zero. The United States has not passed any laws regulating AI. There are individual states that have done it. There's some agreements, what they call an AI Bill of Rights that talks about what should be done by AI developers to protect the population, but no federal regulation. No comprehensive that develops or specifically prohibits or restricts any use in the United States. The EU, however, is a little bit ahead on this. They have created the EU Artificial Intelligence Act that was passed last year, goes into effect in different stages this year. And its goal is to stratify the risk of different AIs. So some AIs have minimal risk, some are highly unacceptable. For example, things that track your biometrics and track your information or try to falsify identity. The goals for this are to develop rules on transparency, auditing, documentation, governance, and the penalties. And the key thing I think about the EU Act is that it has reach beyond the EU into global industry, so that they may be able to lead the world on guiding this. Interestingly, China right now probably has the most strict AI regulation coming from their government to protect identity, ethics, and safety. So we're not sure who's going to lead this, but a lot of places are moving forward. The one concern, though, is that policymakers are starting to embrace AI more as an economic engine for growth and not necessarily the risks. The temptation for AI being a boom for economies is starting to overwhelm the fear of the risks of AI. So we have to constantly be looking for where the balance is. And I can speak in the United States, focus has moved towards growth and use of AI and unrestricting its growth instead of restraining it at the moment. Thank you. I look forward to more questions, and I'll pass it back to Ludwig.
Thank you very much, Professor Gupta, for this lecture and for reminding us about everything else that we have to have in mind when using AI tools. So with that, we are going to our last speaker, Dr. Vincent Roques Escolar. Dr. Roques is a consultant in anesthesia and intensive care medicine at Hospital Universitario Virgen de la Arixaca in Murcia and associate professor of anesthesia at the University of Murcia. He is the chair of the Murcia Society of Anesthesia and Resuscitation and co-founder of the Mediterranean Institute of Regional Anaesthesia and Pain. He's also well known for his YouTube channel, which focuses on different regional anesthesia techniques and use of AI. So now we would like to play a pre-recorded presentation on how to enhance communication with AI tools.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Time will not allow me to walk you through each application in detail, but in the presentation ahead, I hope to reveal the remarkable possibilities we can unlock when blending AI tools with a spark of imagination. To assist me in this task, I will be using an AI-generated avatar, showcasing the remarkable potential of this technology to transform and elevate the way we communicate. The future is no longer about to arrive. It stands right before our eyes. Hi, everyone. Today, I appear in a slightly different form, a digital creation crafted by artificial intelligence in my own image and likeness. In the next few minutes, you will witness something extraordinary, AI unleashing its full potential, ideas transforming into images, thoughts turning into experiences, and a technology that redefines what it means to create. This is not about theories nor about manuals. What you are about to see is the real, tangible, and dazzling impact of artificial intelligence in action. Get ready, because what is about to begin is not just a presentation. It is a demonstration of the power that is changing the world. I have no conflict of interest. I only maintain active accounts on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram where I discuss topics related to regional anesthesia. I acknowledge that my activity on these networks may influence my perspective on this topic. It is evident that the presentation you are about to see is not merely created with artificial intelligence. It is artificial intelligence in its purest form. It was not crafted with a single tool, but through a powerful combination of several brought together to enhance its impact and brilliance. At the heart of modern medicine, an unprecedented revolution is unfolding. Artificial intelligence rises as a beacon of hope and a storm of challenges. It saves lives with speed and precision never seen before, yet forces us to question ethics, trust, and the very meaning of human care. This is not just technology. This is the dawn of a new era, an era where history will be written by human but transcribed by machines. Our fear of being replaced is one of the key expressions of what we know as technophobia. Technophobia is the fear, distrust, or strong dislike of advanced technology or complex devices, especially computers, artificial intelligence, or robotics. Are the fears about artificial intelligence a sensible warning, or just a reflection of our resistance to change? One of the most noticeable effects of artificial intelligence is its ability to automate tasks that are repetitive and predictable. In industries like manufacturing, logistics, or customer service, AI systems and robots can perform these tasks faster, more accurately, and without taking breaks. And what does that mean in practical terms? It means that some jobs, especially the most routine ones, may be reduced or even disappear altogether. While it's true that AI will replace certain jobs, it will also give rise to entirely new roles, many of which don't yet exist today. Just like past technological revolutions, AI will reshape the workforce, not eliminate it. The key will be adaptation, continuous learning, and redefining how humans and machines collaborate. A deepfake is a video or audio clip created using artificial intelligence to realistically mimic someone's face, voice, or actions. While this technology has useful applications, it also raises serious concerns, especially around misinformation, identity theft, and the manipulation of public opinion. The fact that deepfakes can be hard to distinguish from real footage makes them particularly dangerous in today's digital world. The videos, images, and audio clips shown below were created by the author for humorous purposes and to enhance this presentation. None of the individuals depicted have said or done anything shown in these scenes. Everything is a product of imagination, generated using AI, and intended solely for illustrative purposes. In the field of photography, deepfakes make it possible to generate or manipulate images with a high degree of realism. Artificial intelligence can replace faces in existing photographs, alter facial features or clothing, and even create portraits of people who do not exist. In the realm of video, deepfakes reach an even higher level of complexity. The technology not only replaces a face, but also replicates facial expressions, gestures, and movements. In this way, a person may appear to be saying or doing something that never actually happened. The result can be so convincing that it poses serious challenges regarding trust, authenticity, and ethics in audiovisual communication. In the field of audio, deepfakes are based on voice cloning. With only a few seconds of recording, artificial intelligence can learn the characteristics of a person's timbre, accent, and intonation. From there, it can generate new voice segments that closely replicate the original speaker. This technology opens the door to innovative applications for teaching and communications, but also raises significant risks related to fraud, identity theft, and the manipulation of information. Perhaps some of you may recognize this well-known podcast.
Have you ever had the feeling that after attending an Ezra Congress, none of your blocks work correctly and the patient curses your entire family? Hello folks, I'm Amit Power.
After 30 minutes of performing a block, have you realized that the results you read in the last article about the quadratus lumborum block were more like a Spider-Man comic than a scientific journal? Hi friends, I am Jeff Gadsden. In this new episode of Block It Like It's Hot, we will convince you why we need to return to general anesthesia and forget about regional techniques.
Wow, Jeff, we're about to switch from our usual dad jokes to some genuine anesthesiologist humour. Have you ever had the feeling of not knowing what you're doing in front of the surgical team and your resident, but continuing with the procedure as if you had everything under control?
You know what? What you're describing happens to me quite often as well, but by using incomprehensible anatomical terms or unrealistic approaches, I usually manage to come out on top in those situations.
The fear that artificial intelligence could one day turn against humans is not new. We see this clearly in the Terminator, where an AI called Skynet tries to destroy humanity to protect itself. The Matrix shows a world where machines control humans by keeping them inside a virtual simulation. People don't know the truth about their reality. The fear here is more psychological. Humans are afraid of being controlled and losing their freedom, living in a fake world created by technology. Both explore the idea that AI, if developed without restrictions, could not only surpass humans but also enslave them. Both scenarios remain excellent examples of fiction. The real danger of artificial intelligence doesn't lie in the technology itself, but in how we, as humans, choose to use it. Think about a knife. By design, it's a tool, used to prepare food, to nourish. But in the wrong hands, it can become a weapon. AI is neither good nor evil by nature. It's a powerful tool. What defines its impact, positive or harmful, is not the algorithm. It's the intention behind it. So when we talk about the risks of AI, we should really be talking about human responsibility, ethics, and how we decide to shape the future with the tools we create. Beyond the risks, artificial intelligence also opens up a wide range of opportunities. Today, we have programs capable of supporting our studies, boosting content creation, enhancing image quality, and facilitating communication in multiple languages. These tools not only expand our abilities, but also transform the way we learn, express ourselves, and connect with the world. It all started with ChatGPT, so it's impossible for me not to mention it. ChatGPT is a conversational artificial intelligence tool that makes it easier to access, organize, and explain information through natural language. In medicine, it can support studying and clarifying concepts, summarizing scientific articles, drafting patient-friendly materials, organizing clinical information, and generating prompts for the creation of images and videos. Open Evidence and Perplexity are AI-powered platforms designed to provide quick access to reliable information. Perplexity functions as an AI search engine that handles complex queries and synthesizes information from multiple verified sources, making it ideal for research, education, and rapid topic exploration. Open Evidence focuses on delivering evidence-based clinical answers, making it particularly valuable for healthcare professionals seeking up-to-date guidelines, scientific literature, and clinical decision support. Open Evidence's greatest advantage lies in the fact that it performs searches through medical or scientific sources, significantly reducing the risk of misinformation. Moreover, every response is accompanied by its corresponding references. If you haven't explored them yet, I highly encourage you to give them a try. Midjourney and Leonardo AI are image generation platforms powered by artificial intelligence, each with a distinct focus. While Midjourney excels in creativity, Leonardo AI stands out for its functionality. And personally, I use Leonardo AI for its versatility and ease of use. Leonardo AI offers a highly intuitive interface and great versatility. Although it is a paid tool, it has become an excellent solution for image creation, editing, and re-editing, particularly valuable in creative and design-focused environments. The quality of images generated with the help of AI is truly remarkable. ranging from models in impossible positions to 3D sectional anatomical cuts and even transducers and needles. In today's globalized world, communication stands as one of the greatest challenges in medicine. Tools such as automatic translators, text-to-speech technologies, and audiovisual communication platforms serve as vital bridges to overcome linguistic and cultural barriers. With their support, healthcare professionals can better understand one another, even when they do not share a native language. Language throughout history has been both a key and a barrier. A key that opens doors to understanding, but also a barrier that divides cultures. Each language holds not only words, but a unique and profound worldview. However, this linguistic diversity, so rich and valuable, has also limited our possibilities for communication, making connection with other peoples and cultures often an insurmountable challenge. Hoy, gracias a los avances vertiginosos de la inteligencia artificial, esa limitación está siendo superada de manera asombrosa. Ya no es necesario dominar una lengua para ser comprendido en ella. Las tecnologías de traducción basadas en IA han evolucionado más allá de la simple conversión de palabras. Ahora entienden contextos, matices culturales y la complejidad de las emociones, permitiendo que los mensajes se transmitan con una fidelidad y naturalidad inesperadas. Cette avancée offre un potentiel transformateur. Désormais, toute personne peut interagir et accéder à un monde de connaissances et de communication, quelle que soit la langue. L'intelligence artificielle, en brisant les barrières linguistiques, offre une nouvelle forme d'expression qui transcende les limites géographiques et culturelles. Elle nous permet, presque instantanément, de connecter avec des voix de n'importe quel coin du monde, que ce soit dans le domaine personnel, académique ou professionnel. 因此，人工智能不仅在重新定义翻译规则，而且正在塑造一个未来。在这个未来中，语言不再把我们分开，而是将我们连接在一起。在这个新事业中，语言成为了每个人都能接触的桥梁，一种放大我们理解、分享和合作能力的工具。Artificial intelligence is not here to replace professionals, but to empower them, to amplify their abilities, extend their reach, and unlock possibilities once thought impossible. It is a force that transforms data into insight, challenges into solutions, and complexity into clarity. Yet, like every powerful tool, it demands thoughtful guidance, ethical oversight, and human wisdom. Those who embrace its potential today will not only adapt, they will lead with confidence and vision in a fast-changing, technology-driven world. Thank you for your attention, and welcome to the future of medicine shaped by both human expertise and artificial intelligence.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Roques, for your entertaining and insightful video. It really shows the latest progress of AI tools. So with that, I would like to move on to our last part of today's webinar, to the Q&A session. We have a lot of attendees today, and a lot of questions have been asked. So let's start with our first question. This one relates more closely to our last presentation for Dr. Roques. You already talked a little bit about the deepfakes, but how can we fight against the deepfakes in the era of AI? What are the best techniques and tools that we can use to fight the deepfakes?
Well, I think it's difficult. Yes, I have my microphone. I think it's difficult to fight against deepfakes. In fact, we have to use AI against AI. We actually have tools to really identify deepfakes with artificial intelligence. So I think we need to be trained. We need to identify. Probably most of us actually, when we see something, we watch like in Instagram or YouTube a video, we can identify that movie is made with AI. We are every time more capable of identifying AI. probably if in the future AI will improve, will be much better, and will be more difficult to really identify the deep fakes. That's the thing, because every time the deep fake is better, AI works better, so it is more difficult to identify it. Probably we need softwares, we need tools to identify deep fake. Actually, with ChatGPT, with text, we have tools to identify how much of the text we write is made with AI. So we have tools to identify defects actually especially with text, not with photos, not with videos, but in the future we will have that. So I think it's difficult to fight against defects. I love defects because it's so funny, so entertaining, and I love it. But it can make a lot of. It is a big problem, and it is a big fear on people, because it makes a new world, something that never happens. You can see something you just have on your mind. You can make it happens on a screen. So it's amazing. But I think we will have with new tools to identify deepfakes, so we can really identify it clearly.
Yeah. So it's basically AI against AI.
I think it's AI against AI. Use AI against AI.
Okay. So one of the questions that's more for you, James. Are there any of these AI tools that you showed that have been validated to use in clinical practice? And if yes, which one of them would you recommend to the beginners? That's one of the questions asked today.
Yeah, I mentioned a few of them. There are sort of 5 main tools that sort of are or have been commercially available for in the context of central neuraxial blockade. There's something called USign from Hikura Medical to assist with spinals and epidurals. There is Accuro by Ravana Medical. They both have commercially available products. I think Hikura have an FDA cleared device and Ravana an EU cleared device, and they're kind of going through the corresponding regulatory approval processes in the other territories at the minute. I'm not sure that they have regulatory clearance to sell clinical tools in other areas. In other geographical sort of regulatory territories in Asia, Australasia, and Africa, for example, or South America. And then in the context of peripheral nerve blockade, C-nerve produced by GE Healthcare, which is more limited in nature to the nerves, the interscalene brachial plexus, interscalene supraclavicular brachial plexus, femoral nerve, and popliteal level sciatic nerve. The device that I kind of worked with to produce called ScanNav was commercially available in Europe and the USA. However, that's recently been acquired by GE and is not available at the minute due to that. And then Smart Alpha produced something called Nerve Blocks, which has EU regulatory approval and within the last couple of weeks has FDA clearance as well for use in the USA. Those are all the devices that I'm aware of being widely available at the minute. Clearly, others are in development in the specifically context of ultrasound scanning for regional anesthesia. And I think there's not clear evidence that one is particularly superior to another yet. Clearly, things will evolve, and there'll be new developments later in this year, which you kind of I can share more information with you about those things later in the year, which will make some of the kind of tools more widely available. And as they go through kind of further iterations as well. But I'm not sure at the minute one has got an evidence base to say one is clearly superior to the other. I think it's a bit like ultrasound machines in that variety of manufacturers make good ultrasound machines, and it's perhaps optimal to choose one which suits your purpose in the first context. that's probably kind of what I'd say in that context. There's, you know, variety of ones which are available in different territories. They perform similar functions.
And one of the questions that was also asked in the chat, what happens when ultrasound anatomy is not so straightforward, and how reliable is AI to detect the nerves in those conditions, like in the obese and patients?
So, and I'll take the example of ScanNav, which I worked on, which was a sort of primitive, the de novo, the first device in this field that got regulatory approval. And we did a variety of studies, which we identified, and I think it was 1,624 structures through 720 images, and it correctly identified them in 1,519 cases. I think the numbers are right, which makes it a 93.5% accuracy rate. There is a 3 to 3.5% false positive and false negative rate with that device. Bear in mind that those models were developed 2 years ago, and there have been substantial iterations of that. That patient population was included BMIs up to around 40, with a variety of anatomy, because we didn't pre-select normal anatomy. However, I think it's true to say that, I think Raja put in an answer to one of the previous questions, if it's visible, if a human eye can see something on an ultrasound image, an AI tool, if appropriately trained, could probably identify it. And a sort of an extension of that is, if an AI tool has been trained on a lot of examples of a particular image, it will tend to be better identifying structures in that image. If anatomy is less frequently encountered, it will operate probably not quite as well. So there is a sort of there is a drop off in performance as we approach these so-called edge cases. I think to kind of display the full gamut of human anatomy, the full range of it, and exhaustively evaluate these tools in each section, each cohort, has not been done yet, and is probably redundant, because by the time each tool is fully examined like that, the next tool is out and the net data models are available. But I think we are operating at a level with AI tools in reasonably standard anatomy, which already meets, it already surpasses a non-expert in many cases. And we've kind of published a paper to show the variation in identification of structures amongst experts, and the AI was pretty similar to that. I think that will change and continue to improve. But one thing to bear in mind, I guess, if we have highly atypical anatomy, really challenging patients, these tools at the moment tend to augment the performance of non-experts. And if you've got a really challenging case in a highly atypical situation, you probably want an expert involved in that patient's care anyway.
Yeah, great, thank you. And Professor Gupta?
Yeah, I think, so James gave the really smart answer. I'm going to give the more simple version of this answer, is that everything has an error rate, right? So you have to think any tool going to have some amount of error rate. The question is what error rate do we tolerate? The human being doing the ultrasound scanning has an error rate. It's probably higher than many of the AI tools, depending on your training level. And there's a certain amount of error we accept in the human physician clinician doing the pre, and we accept that level of error rate. But we wouldn't accept that level of error in the AI tool. We have a much higher standard that we're holding AI tools. The perfect example of this is self-driving cars. So the likelihood that a human being gets is quite high. Our error rate while driving is terrible, and we would never tolerate a self-driving vehicle with that kind of error rate. But it doesn't mean that you'll ever get to a perfect driving situation, be a complex road, a weather situation, a signage, someone driving erratically. Somewhere the AI will fail, but it still may be far better than a human being doing the same driving situation. We, as a society, have to decide if we're okay with that level of error. And many of the questions that are coming up are sort of related to that, is when do we get psychologically to a point where we're accepting the error rate in the current version of the AI? And that's the place where it will become more and more clinically applicable. And I think that rate is diminishingly small. It's getting smaller and smaller at a very rapid rate. And I think that's what James was alluding to.
I think that's totally true, Raj. And I think in sort of adding to that, my kind of bit on kind of the need for clinical leadership, I think my experience of taking some of the first devices through the regulatory approval process in Europe and the US was that this field, the thought processes, the approaches, the methodologies, traditionally are technology led. And I think that's, is fine if Apple are making the next iteration of the MacBook, but the people who are doing the iterating are actually users of the MacBook. So they have, it is consumer-led design. That's not the case when we're making AI tools for ultrasound scanning, or whether it's ventilators or monitoring systems or whatever it is in an anesthesia setting. And I think we need to have clinical input into these decisions, such as deciding what the threshold of acceptability is. Because, and I'll give you one sort of brief example, there's a sort of metric called the intersection over union, where you kind of have a look at what your sort of reference and your ground truth, where your experts say the nerve is, where the AI output says the nerve is, and you measure the overlap of the two pixel areas. Historically, a lot of kind of technology-led papers have arbitrarily said, well, if there's a more than 50% overlap, or or kind of some variations on that, well, then that's a true positive. Well, is it really? Because if we want our needle to be right next to the nerve, if you're right next to the AI output of the nerve, where the nerve is, but actually that's in the 50% of kind of the pixels that the AI output doesn't predict, then that's a whole true negative for us clinically. But I think Raj is totally right that the performance of the AI tool is increasing, and we have to have some input into what the acceptable threshold is for these tools, what's the acceptable error rate, because we have them as clinicians as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think we need to be involved in this field, and not be sort of passive bystanders, and this field happens to us.
Great, thank you very much for these answers. I just have one question. What do you think, what is the role of associations like ESRA and ASRA in the development of those devices and in the general development of AI tools? What would you say?
Well, if I may kind of offer my thoughts initially, as I'm sure Raj and Vicente will have thoughts on this. We've recently formulated the AI working group within ESRA that I'm chairing, and I hope that some of you attending today, if you are attending in person in Oslo, will be able to join our session at the first morning. I think these ideas are all very well and good coming from individuals. Vicente, Raj, and I think about these things a lot. We're very interested in them, but I think we need, at an organizational level, or as organized medicine, we need to interface with this field more effectively. ESRA is one such body which covers a large geographical region, and actually has a clinical and academic reach beyond that geographical region to influence educational content such as this, to influence academic activity and research funding, to influence policy making, and to disseminate their message. So I think ESRA has a really powerful role to play, because it has a really significant reach, and provides organized medicine credibility in that context. And ASRA, and EOSRA, AFSRA, LASRA, all these organizations, and not just regional anesthesia specific, have the same kind of opportunity there and responsibilities. And I think, the more we engage with that as individuals and organizations, and collaborate on that, I think the better.
Great, thank you. We are running out of time a little bit, but does any of the speakers have anything else to add? Any other questions that you would like to answer during our live session?
I just want to emphasize, if we could leave the audience with one main point, which is we are either going to be victims of AI, or we're going to be drivers of it. And I think James has really hit that point hard, which is that it behooves all of us to learn as much as we can about this technology, where it's useful, where it's dangerous. Try it, we will be subject to other people's decision making. And I think that's probably the worst case scenario. So if anything, there's a lot of fun and interesting stuff presented, but in a year, presentation will look completely different, but the concept that we have to be drivers will stay the same.
Thank you. Any other?
Yes, and I think exactly the same. We must be drivers. We must really use AI. We cannot be victims of AI. We cannot be scared of AI and hiding of AI. We must be drivers. We must really use it, know how to use it correctly, and I think that's the clue. We have to use it. We have to be drivers. I think Rax said perfectly. We must be the drivers.
Great, thank you. And on that, I would like to finish today's webinar. I would like, first of all, thank to all of the speakers that gave your talks today, and thank you all for joining us and engaging with many questions. We try to answer them as much as possible. And thank you also to the ESRA team, especially to Jeremy and Amina, who supported us and organized everything in the background. So I would like to wish you all listening a nice evening and see you soon in Oslo. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.